Hello, everybody. It's your friendly digital technology librarian, Christy here. We've reached another Friday, so of course, I have another Film Rec Friday ready for everybody out there. So, every once in a while, whether it be because of family stuff, work stuff, the season, whatever, you might be in the need of a bit of a pick-me-up. And I thought today would be a great day to cover a handful of comedies that have, for me anyway, really stood the test of time. These three films are all available via our Kanopy service, so you get them entirely for free with the use of your library card. These are movies that have actually aged pretty well, and considering one, comedy is so subjective, and two, tends to date really quickly, I find it incredibly impressive, to me anyway, that movies from the 1990s can really still resonate and still make me laugh even today. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get to the Rex. Okay, first up is one of those movies that back in the day I used to be able to quote frontwards and backwards. It's one that my friends and I have probably seen 100 times, and I think today is still just as funny as it was back in the 90s, and that is 1992's Wayne's World. Now, if you look at it from a historical perspective, Wayne's World has some really interesting elements to it. Despite the fact that it came out in 1992, it is still the highest grossing film based off of a Saturday Night Live sketch. That is wild to me. That is a decades long record. And its original domestic gross was about $121 million, which is a pretty sizable amount of money for a comedy, especially back then. And it's one of the highest grossing films from 1992 in the first place. That was the year that Aladdin came out, which was massive. So it placed within the top 10 that year. Again, pretty big deal. And the fact that it's a comedy that sort of has stood the test of time is wild, because for a minute there, Mike Myers, who plays Wayne Campbell in Wayne's World, was having a real moment. He was generally cast all over the place. Of course, this is the era of like Austin Powers and all of his characters that he played within the Austin Powers world. So I Married an Axe Murderer. Basically, if studios wanted a comedy to do well, they looked to Mike Myers. Some of these films have aged better than others. I think Wayne's World is sort of like the pinnacle of that. And I don't know if it's because it's kind of outside the box, because, you know, it is a very different kind of humor in this, in all honesty. Like it just is really, really wonderful to watch. Maybe it's the buddy concept. So if you are not already familiar with Wayne's World, it was originally just this sketch about these two ridiculous kind of bumbling metalheads and their super low budget public access station. They just talked about things that they liked. Like they had like these catchphrases. Anyway, the film expands upon that. They have like a really dedicated following, right? And these are guys who are never going to be walking into a boardroom. They are like very, very much kind of slackery style, like stereotypical 1990s dudes that, you know, still live in their parents' basements, and it's definitely a vibe, right? So this sleazy network exec kind of discovers this show, sees it has a following, sees it has serious potential, and decides to turn it into like a big mainstream thing. Of course, he wants to go through all of these changes. Wayne and Garth are definitely not great with change. They are not talking to lawyers about how to protect themselves. And this all snowballs into a ton of problems for them. Along with these issues with maybe taking their show national, we're dealing with Wayne's love interest, Cassandra. She's this really hip metal rocker chick, and we've got that side story. We've got Garth and his own love story going on. It's a lot of ridiculous stuff all smashed together. But for whatever reason, it really, really works. Probably mainly because of the cast. The cast is phenomenal in this. You've got Wayne Campbell being played by Mike Myers. You've got Garth Algar played by the incomparable Dana Carvey. Those two have chemistry like nothing else. I mean, as far as buddy comedies go, they're just really up there for me. They play off of one another so well. And it's just, and I think you get that feeling when you watch it. It's just so silly, and there's nothing there's no heavier meaning to this. There's no like big aim. It's just silly and ridiculous, and I think sometimes we need that, and this does a great job of it. Cassandra, Wayne's love interest, is played by Tia Carrera, who absolutely rocks her role. She's just really awesome, and then she's also gorgeous. The sleazy network executive is played by Rob Lowe, who does a really good job in the 90s of playing these sort of sleazy characters. Like there's just so many times when Rob Lowe is like the villain, but in like this very Rob Lowe kind of way. I mean, he's his own stereotype, or his own archetype, I should say. But yeah, there's just so much going on. The music is great. You've got iconic scenes like Bohemian Rhapsody in the car. If you've never seen Wayne's World and you've never seen the little bit at the front end of the film where Wayne and his friends are just driving in this teeny tiny beater of a car, rocking out to Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody, you need to run to YouTube and find it. It is absolutely iconic, and has, I'm sure, spawned many road trip with friends doing the same thing. I know that we used to when we were teenagers in our cars, and we continue to do that as adults every once in a while when we get together. So if you were looking for something that is absolutely hilarious, that isn't heavy, that's just silly and ridiculous with great music, really, really funny buddy style comedy, or if you just want to revisit the 90s, this is the best way to do it. I'm telling you. So please do check out Wayne's World, as with all of today's recommendations, available on Kanopy and 100% worth the watch. Okay, my next recommendation is a phenomenal comedy from Christopher Guest that is for every community theater performer out there. If you have ever done community theater, you need to see this. That is 1996's Waiting for Guffman. First off, Christopher Guest's ensemble comedies are glorious. You've got Waiting for Guffman, you've got For Your Consideration, Best in Show, A Mighty Wind. These are the most phenomenal examples of ensemble performance and in comedy, especially, that I think you can get. Like, Christopher Guest, of course, was in Spinal Tap. He knows a good comedic ensemble comedy, and he has parlayed it into these amazing movies. Waiting for Guffman, I believe, is my favorite, mainly because I have been a community theater performer for years and years and years, starting from when I was a kid. And this is definitely a film that was made by people who have done community theater, who have done like ridiculous shows where you really are pretty sure it's not going to work out until the very last minute, with those really big personalities, and it is absolutely a love letter to that kind of theater experience. So in Waiting for Guffman, we're following this ridiculously wonderful little director named Corky St. Clair. He's like the go-to guy for musicals in their very, very small town. And they are going to be doing a 150th anniversary of their town celebration. It's like this completely original production, and that original production just comes with some absolutely ridiculous things happening in it. The cast is so outrageous, and of course your cast is anchored by people like Catherine O'Hara, Fred Willard. I mean, these are people who know how to be absolutely ludicrous on screen but make you feel like their characters are absolutely real people that you will find on the street. And again, as someone who has done a lot of community theater, they exist. These people, they all exist. It is definitely one of those movies where you see yourself in some of the characters. You're just like, oh, please tell me I'm not that that person, and only to realize, yes, you absolutely are. And that's kind of the fun of it. It's making fun in a really, really warm, loving kind of way. And I know that sounds kind of odd, but it absolutely does. It doesn't, it makes you feel like you're part of the joke and you're in on it, you know? And I love that about this movie. Um, you definitely have, obviously a play on Waiting for Godot, but in this, the night of the production, when the production goes up, they are waiting for this supposed big time Broadway producer Guffman to come in and to see the show. And there's this rumor that he's gonna bring this teeny tiny show national, so everybody's so excited and nervous. And there's a lot of that being built in to the whole the whole film, the whole time. And you get this urgency, but you also know, you know, the likelihood of these things happening is kind of in the air. Um, if you happened to be a theater kid, if you do community theater today, if you just really like theater in general, or you just love ensemble comedy, I'm telling you, you have to watch Waiting for Guffman. Even though this was made in 1996, it ages so perfectly well. One, because community theater doesn't really change. I mean, the way it's been done is the way it's been done for decades upon decades upon decades. Like, you're always scrambling for budget. You're doing the most you can with this very little bit of what you've got. And you get that feeling from this movie. If you happen to like really fantastic ensemble comedy, whether we're talking about things like real classics like Spinal Tap, or you're talking about other Christopher Guest productions, or any ensemble comedy, this is a phenomenal example of all of that. You've got the biggies, like I was saying. You have Fred Willard, Catherine O'Hara, you've got Eugene Levy, you've got Christopher Guest. Parker Posey is fantastic in this, and I could go on, but like these are people who really know their stuff and who are known for ensemble performance. So definitely check this one out. Even if you're not a theater performer, I think you will get so much out of it. But if you are, this is an absolute must watch. Again, available on Kanopy. You really do need to check it out. Okay, last but not least is one of my all-time favorite rom-coms. That is 1995's Clueless. I am not a high school film fan. I've never been. When I was in high school, I didn't like movies about high school. However, as a 40-year-old, I absolutely adore Clueless. Maybe it's its ties to Jane Austen's Emma. I don't know, but I could watch this thing over and over again and never get tired of it. So Clueless, as I mentioned, is sort of very loosely based on Jane Austen's Emma. And whether or not you're an Austen fan, it doesn't matter. But if you are, this is, in all honesty, my favorite adaptation of that story, even compared to like the really tight, well-performed BBC productions. Like, I there's just something about Clueless, and I think a lot of it has to do with the cast, but I'll get to the cast in a moment. In Clueless, we're following Alicia Silverstone's production of Cher. She is a really, really wealthy 15-year-old in Beverly Hills. She kind of rules her school. She knows that she is kind of like queen bee. She has an enormous amount of privilege. We should not like Cher at all. She's just not someone we should enjoy following along. And if you know Emma, in reality, that character should feel the same. But there's something about that sort of period piece vibe that I don't think it comes across quite so well. Whereas with this very 90s, very, very high school drama, it does. She's not a mean girl. She does try her best to do good things with all of her power and her wealth, but she's just still so ugh. However, Alicia Silverstone does something that I would not have thought possible. She makes Cher infinitely likable. Even when Cher is making massive, massive mistakes, when she says something outrageous or something that she really shouldn't, or she does things that she really shouldn't, you still don't hate Cher. Never. At no point. At least I don't. You meet her merry band of friends, all of whom are also ridiculously privileged kids in Beverly Hills. and again, these are really good correlations to make with the original story, right? Uh, and while they are not quite as likable as Cher, they are definitely not people that you detest. You've got standout performances from Donald Faison as the boyfriend of Cher's best friend. You've got so there, Mr. Knightley is played by Paul Rudd, who actually looks, I think, in a lot of ways older in this movie than he does today, which is the weirdest thing ever. But he is playing her older stepbrother, who is former stepbrother, I should say, because their parents divorced, but her father is still in touch with um his ex stepson. It gets very confusing, the vernacular within this movie. Uh and so he's constantly in her life while she is sort of this flighty, like Beverly Hills shopping obsessed princess. Her older former stepbrother is very much like super conscious. He's really keyed in to what's going on in the world. Of course, lives with massive privilege because, again, Beverly Hills in the 90s especially. uh so a lot of like the pompous nature of Mr. Knightley is definitely very much imbued in this other character. It's just very, very interesting how well the adaptation is done. And it's by Amy Heckerling, who also directs this, and she just does a masterful job. I had never heard of her before Clueless. And granted, Clueless came out in 1995. So, but she just does such an amazing job of sort of capturing the feeling of Emma, putting it into a 1990s high school setting, and making me love it. Again, 30 years down the line, and this is still one of my absolute favorite romantic comedies. Um, you have Brittany Murphy playing this sort of project friend that Cher has, where she gives her this makeover and like really tries to bring her into the fold of the cool kids in her Beverly Hills world. And she's just so sweet, this girl that Murphy plays. And when you think about like the trajectory of Brittany Murphy's life, it just, there's a lot of meta going on too. I don't know. There's just something really charming about Clueless. Again, if you like Jane Austen, you 100% have to watch this if you've never seen it before. It really is, in all honesty, a masterful adaptation. It sounds so silly and frivolous, and it is in a lot of ways, but so is Emma. Like, that's the whole point, is that you're dealing with this world that is like absolutely frivolous and ridiculous, and how these uber wealthy people are just kind of like manipulating the world and the community around them. And this makes it really, that all of those concepts are really approachable and relatable, because even today, yes, 30 years down the line, some things are different, but like we all know Beverly Hills, California is like a bastion of wealth, right? So you have all of these touchstones that still remain constant. Um so yeah, if you are an Austen film, you 100% need to watch it. If you are a comedy fan, if you like romantic comedies, again, I don't like high school films and I never have, but I love this movie. Paul Rudd fans, highly recommend. If you have never seen Clueless, you 100% need to. He's super charming, super funny, and does a really great job with a role that could be really dry and boring. And he absolutely isn't. And really, just anyone who is looking for something light and fluffy and fun that will also sort of stay with you afterward, check out Clueless. It is a delightful comedy, and again, one of my favorites, even 30 years down the line. Okay, so those were my recommendations for comedies that would hopefully make you laugh like it's 1999. If you have any recommendations for similar comedies from the 1990s that you want to recommend to fellow viewers, please put those in the comments below. If you have any recommendations for future themes you'd like to see us cover, definitely share those. Always looking for help with that. As always, thank you so much for joining me. Today was a delightful day to be able to revisit all of these former favorites and just get the chance to rewatch them and laugh again. Again, Thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully I will see you next time. Bye-bye.